By the time I was 19, I got married, and I was 120 pounds, looked good, and then took the pill for 9 months, gained 50 pounds. At my highest point, I was well over 230. I had the back of my hands. You couldn't see the back. You couldn't see my veins. I had dimples where my knuckles are. I had about 60, and I had the doctor put morbidly obese on my chart. Told me I had the hemochromatosis, so I had to go for phlebotomies, and that kind of was a wake-up call finally. I didn't mind being old. I didn't want to look old. And then they gave me a bone biopsy to see if I had the JAK2 gene or whatever. That ended up costing me like 13 grand.
All right. With us today, we have Linda, who has been a longtime member of the Carnivore Diet community, and she's going to share her success. I always see she's always one of the first ones to log in. Typically, when I'm firing up my computer, I see the names popping, and she's typically among the very first.
Little hand, yeah.
I always see her hand popped up because she's always got the phone pointing at the ceiling for some reason. But anyway, Linda, well, tell us, I guess maybe, do you mind sharing where you're located, or is that okay?
Yeah, I'm down in Southern California. We used to be neighbors.
Oh, were you in? I was in Laguna
I'm in Seal Beach,
Hills.
So, yeah.
So a little north.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I was in Dana Point at one point, but
yeah.
Anyway, how's the weather down there today?
Today it's a little cloudy. It was gorgeous yesterday. It's been off and on. It rains on the weekends, and it's beautiful all week. So
that's the way it works, isn't it? Yeah, goodness, it's beautiful. It's actually a nice day out here, but I'm working inside all day, unfortunately, for that. So I took my dogs for a nice stroll this morning to start. But all right, Linda, I guess let's just start at the beginning. How did you? Obviously, you've used diet to help something, I assume. So where were you at? Where did you tell me a little about basically your background?
Okay. There's nothing really that huge. Like some of these people I listen to, there's so many amazing things that they fix, but mine is all kind of smallish, but it's still important to me. And it's probably most people have the same problems, the little stuff. So anyway, I'm 70. And when I was born, my mom liked good food. Dad liked good food. So we always had lots of meat, lots of potatoes, and a little bit of vegetables. So I ate pretty good as a kid, although I was sick a lot. I had strep as a baby and my tonsils out at 18 months. And then in elementary school, I started a little too young and I was dyslexic, so I had trouble in school. So I was always sick because I didn't want to be there. So I'd get sick. I had strep in the first grade for 3 weeks and had to have rheumatic fever shots. So I was always getting penicillin and whatever. So I'm sure that didn't help me much. By the time I was 19, I got married and I was 120 pounds, looked good, and then took the pill for 9 months, gained 50 pounds. No, 25. I went up to 150. Here I am, 25 pounds heavier. My mom gave me Atkins. So I read the Atkins. I started that, quit the pill, got pregnant. So I went from 150 to 153 and had my baby and went home at 129, which was great. I was happy. For the next 20 years, I was mostly low carb. And I kept my weight down to 130 to 140, depending. But when I was, in my 30s, we took a job. We started doing a job where we worked overseas in Asia. So we were traveling a lot. And we would spend 3 to 6 to 9 months in Asia traveling. We did have an apartment later on over there for about 20 years. We had an apartment. You're eating out a lot, and you go to a factory and they want to take you to dinner and they feed you all this stuff. There's an hour right there on the stuff I hate in China. But the things we did, especially when we first went, was in early 90 when we first went into China. And it was interesting. Anyway, so they bring you all these things and you have to eat them a little bit. Slowly you get knocked off your diet, and then people get upset when you don't eat birthday cake. And you shouldn't eat high fat because you're going to get heart attacks and all this garbage. Slowly you lose it. For 20 years I was low carb, and then, let me see, I have meats here. Sorry. And so then after that, life started getting complicated. My husband had an alcohol problem and things got dicey, and I'd get upset and then this and that. And start gaining weight a little bit. And then you start fighting it. And you start gaining. You start fighting it. And then from, what was it? Like from 40 to 60, everything fell apart. I had a bunch of deaths in the family. I got divorced. So I was basically homeless except for my house in China, my apartment in China. And then I think mom dying in 2010 was probably the straw. I was up to, at my highest point I was well over 230, well over. I don't know how much it was. I had the back of my hands. You couldn't see the back. You couldn't see my veins. I had dimples where my knuckles are. And you couldn't see the dent in your throat and the bones. That was bad. I was really heavy. I know I was well over 230. So then I started, let me see. I had about 60, and I had the doctor put morbidly obese on my chart, told me I had the hemochromatosis, or she called it polycythemia. Yeah. There was, all three of those things were on there. Anyway, so I had to go for phlebotomies, and that kind of was a wake-up call finally. So all the yo-yoing I did in my 40s and 50s up into the 60s, all this yo, from 230 to 180, back up to 230, back down. It's okay, you have to stop doing this. So I had that, and I had high blood pressure, so now I was on pills for that. And then, just all kinds of stupid stuff started popping up. My joints ached. I could hardly walk up steps. My hips hurt. My knees hurt. All the normal 60-year-old stuff that all of my friends take for granted. You couldn't stand up and just walk. You're all hunched over and all creaky. I hated that. I hated looking old like that. I didn't mind being old. I didn't want to look old. Let's see. Nervous. So I started an exercise class, and I started reading. And I remembered my Atkins. Okay, I know Atkins is good, so I half-heartedly did low carb. One time in China, we were at this factory. I was heavy, really heavy, well over 200. And the factory, we were living there, and for lunch and dinner, they served fried rice and fried noodles that looked like it had been cooked in motor oil. It's horrible. I couldn't eat it. There's no way. Every day, somebody brought me in a whole roasted chicken from a local restaurant. And that's all I ate all day. I had that chicken. I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I lost 75 pounds in 3 months. And I'm like, oh, that's that low carb thing. And then I wanted to keep doing it, but you get out of that situation and you're in normal life again. And everybody's like, you can't do that. You can't just eat meat. You fall off of it and then you back on and back off, back on. Anyway, when I started researching and stuff, I remembered my chicken summer. And it was like, okay. So I tried a waterfall diet, which was lots of celery and cabbage and chicken. Yeah, I got stones in my thyroid, got stones in my back from it. And then I found Dr. of all people, Dr. Joel Wallach. You know him? He's low carb. He's a vet, but he's very interesting. He's got tons of stories and stuff. He pushes vitamins too much, but he's no grains, no seed oils, no sugar. So that kind of got me going there. And then I found Dr. Gundry, and I read all about how we shouldn't eat plants, but we really should eat plants. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So at the end of the book, he had a keto thing. So I was reading the keto thing, and I thought, this sounds like Atkins. So I was already online listening to him and Dr. Wallach, so I looked up keto, and I found Dr. Berry. So, oh, this is great. That's about the time he was going carnivore. He just turned carnivore, so I'm like, chicken summer. I like meat. I really like meat. That's really the only thing I like to eat. I did it. And so I looked that up and found you. And that's it.
That's not just a little. You got a lot of things going on. I'm interested. Just back to the time in China. How was China? I mean, most of us, I've never been. Actually, I've flown through an airport in China, but I've never really spent much time there. What was it like to live? And this was several years ago, I assume, so it's quite different now. I assume.
Yeah.
Like as far as lifestyle in China and stuff like that.
When we first started going in the 90s, it was, you had to go someplace with a local representative of the government. They had, because we were buying and we were designing Christmas garbage and seasonal stuff, And
Mm-hmm.
you had to go with an agent. It was either a city agent or a provincial agent or whatever. And they would take you to the factory and you'd work, and then they'd take you back to your hotel. They kept tabs on you in the early days. You had to have an agent or a government agent or you couldn't buy, right? And so you'd get there, you'd drive 2 hours to a factory. They'd want to take you to lunch. Ugh. And if you didn't want to go to lunch, then the driver would tell you that he was going to leave you there. There was very few cars and very few drivers, and you had to do what the driver wanted to do. So if he wasn't ready to leave, you wouldn't go. You had to wait you had this millionaire from Hong Kong, and we'd be sitting around waiting for the driver to quit reading his comic book. Anyway, so you'd have to go to lunch, and there'd be lovely things like whole frogs floating in soup, like little Shrek balloons, and chopped up turtles and bugs, and this could go on forever. One time it was this white lump on the plate. It was steamed cow stomach with last meal, and they sliced it open, and it was like a green meatloaf inside. Ooh, I don't think I'm going to eat that. We had locusts, we had all kinds of stuff. So in the early years, they cooked with animal fats. And as time went by the time I was leaving, ready to retire 20-some years later, 30 years later, it was, you go into Walmart or the big grocery stores over there, and they've got mountains of 1-gallon bottles of corn oil hooked together so you can pick up 2 at a time. People were walking out of the stores with 4 gallons. There were big pyramids in the stores of this stuff. And so I know that's not helping their health anymore. They were all nice and slim when we first started going. Now they're all getting like the rest of us.
So did you get fluent in Chinese?
No. There's 600 dialects.
No.
I tried to learn a little Mandarin, but every factory I'd go to, they spoke the local dialect, and you'd have to have it translate. I'd tell my girl in English. She'd tell the person in the factory in Mandarin, and then they would translate it into whatever the local language was. And anything could happen. I called it the Tower of Babel. It was always interesting because you never knew what you were going to get. Like if you were in Hong Kong, you'd take a picture of a Santa Claus and you'd write on it in Chinese, in Hong Kong Chinese, which was the traditional. You'd write, make 20% smaller. So they'd send it up to northern China, and they would send you back a product that was 20% thinner. Not same height, 20% thinner. So actually, we sold them. It was okay. You never knew what was going to happen. It was interesting. I liked it. I loved the job.
As you probably, I'm sure you've heard me talk about Hong Kong. I've never been to Hong Kong, but I understand based on statistics that are available widely across the world that they eat a lot of meat there. Is that something you noticed when you were in Hong Kong?
Yeah, they eat a lot of meat there. Actually, China eats a lot of meat, but you got to remember that we were guests and we were buying stuff, so they were treating us well with lots of food and treats and stuff. So I don't know. Really, in the early days, I don't know what they ate when we weren't there. But like we have a table, they would bring the plates and stack them and send you the big round table, and there would be like 50 plates on the table, but most of it was some kind of weird different green things with little tiny pieces of meat or little tiny pieces of intestines or something in it. It wasn't, but as time went by, China got more and more affluent and the food got better. So we were always eating lots of meat, always lots of meat. So actually, in the later years when I would try to be low carb, it was easy. I could just pass up the rice and pass up the weird stuff.
Yeah, I guess the impression is that they eat massive amounts of rice in China. Is that what you observe, or was it? My understanding is rice is common, but it's not in great volume. Is that fair to say or no?
You put it in they probably ate those little small bowls. That's a small bowl. Probably holds a cup, maybe a cup and a half of rice, and they just use it as like a blotting paper for their. They take the meat or whatever off of the trays and then eat a little rice with it. I would say they probably ate maybe 1 or 2 bowls per meal, but the kids in the factories didn't eat like that. So, but they were living in the factories in the dorms, and if they wanted to save money, they'd give them meatless 2 days a week or something. They didn't eat that good. They ate a lot of rice and a lot of noodles.
Yeah, sure. And that's the thing. Often grains and rice or whatever staple, like those types of crops are often given to the poor, and higher quality nutrition is reserved.
It depends on what part of China too. Like northern China, they do more noodles, more wheat, fields and fields of wheat instead of rice. There's just miles and miles of
lots of pork.
Pork is the main thing.
Pork is amazing.
Beef is hit or miss. It was.
It's increasing statistically. I know I know they've got more. I think China has more cattle now than the U.S. does. Surprisingly, I don't know if people know that, but
they got more people.
Well, they certainly got more people. They also have more cattle, and of course, gazillions of pigs. And so, let's go back to your sort of health trend. So, you had off and on the Atkins diet, and you talked to Dr. Wallach or saw Wallach, and then follow Ken. I've got it. And funny, Ken and I are on the YouTube channel on his channel later today. And then you decided you went carnivore. So how did you transition over to carnivore? What was your thought? What were your thoughts going in? Was it something that you were worried about?
No.
A lot of people are like, I can't just only eat meat. How did you?
No, because I was already very low keto. I was like ketovore, I would say, as Dr. Berry calls it, ketovore. And so just dropping those last few veg, which always irritated me because I'd buy them, I put them in the fridge, they'd turn black and slimy, and I'd throw them out, and I'd be irritated. So probably the hardest thing for me to give up was my no sugar chocolate with nuts in it, and my bag of nuts, and let's see, what else? Those were the two hardest things. The potatoes. Potatoes originally with low carb was the hardest thing to give up, because I gave up bread forever ago, and I never really got back into it, but I've always liked potatoes. And now they don't even interest me anymore. Nothing interests me anymore except some nice meat.
That's interesting. It almost sounds weird, but it's the way it is. I'm the same way.
The day I realized, I walked in and got a coffee, and I didn't argue with myself all the way in and all the way out about that chocolate chip cookie. I walked out the door with my coffee, and I went, oh my God. Didn't even look at it. I was so happy. And from then on, that was early into carnivore, I think. The carnivore got rid of the last of my, wish I could have that stuff. But
yeah, so when you transition over, where were you at that point? I know you said you got up to over 230 pounds at some point. Where did you, because I guess you were already doing some low carb stuff.
Okay.
Where were you at?
3 years of the waterfall diet with very little chicken and a lot of veg. To get rid of my edema and stuff, that didn't really help. I lost slowly 40 pounds in 3 years. And then on carnivore in 7 months, I lost 40 more. So that was the thing that did it. It's just like off it went. And of course, you get your insulin under control. You get the hemochromatosis, the blood pressure, the skin tags, the this, the that. All these things that I had are gone because of that, but nobody would tell you that. I kept asking the doctor, why do I have high blood pressure? Oh, it's just there. Why do I have this? Is my blood all messed up? Oh, you just need phlebotomies every month for the rest of your life. No, I don't. I don't want that. I don't want to take the pills for the rest of my life. So,
yeah, let me go back, because that's interesting. Because hemochromatosis is a condition where there's too much iron in your system. And you've got this polycythemia vera where you've got too many red cells floating around, basically. And maybe, did you have skin, like a lot of people sometimes get skin where skin kind of gets red and stuff like that? My father had that condition. He was quite ruddy complected, but I'm ruddy. People always comment how red I look.
Not really.
But I wonder, with all because I assume you're eating a lot of beef now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're consuming lots of iron, lots of heme iron, lots of highly bioavailable iron, and yet you've got hemochromatosis. How did that play out for you?
It went away. So it was going away before I started carnivore, and it just totally went away. But, one thing I did during the waterfall diet that helped was I took collagen morning and night. And I told the doctor, and she said, yeah, I don't know. But that did help. But then again, it was the meat that I wasn't eating. So I guess I needed it. And then when I started carnivore, I just got rid of that because I was eating enough in the meat, because I like all those chewy bits and the stuff on the bone. So I figured I didn't need it anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. And a lot of people don't understand there's a lot of collagen just within like a steak, for instance. Just muscle meat itself without the tendons and all the other chewy bits have 3% collagen by volume typically.
Yeah.
So and most of us are eating far more meat than the average American. So our collagen, I don't know that we need to supplement collagen. I guess the bottom line with that. But so with the hemochromatosis, do you remember at your labs or how high your ferritin was
I think
at one point? And where it went to?
It didn't. They weren't looking at that. They were looking at something else, and it was 18. I'd have to go find the paperwork. It was, they wanted me to be at 14. So I finally got down to 14, and
that's probably your hemoglobin. That would be your hemoglobin, I assume. Yeah, 18's high. So you had too many red cells in your blood. So they were doing serial phlebotomies on you at some point.
Yes.
Giving blood every 6 weeks.
It was once a week for a couple of months.
Okay, yeah.
There were 3 months, and then it was every other week, and then it was down to once a month for, I don't know, I did it for 3 years. Every time I had this horrible insurance, and because I wasn't old enough yet to get Medicare. So it was a $300 and some draw to throw away my blood, and I had to pay 100 of it every time. And then they gave me a bone biopsy to see if I had the JAK2 gene or whatever. That ended up costing me like 13 grand. Geez, for nothing.
You could have bought a lot of steaks for that, right?
God.
You think about it.
Could have done a lot of things for that. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible that you're spending. The sad thing to me is, and not the fault of the doctor, they don't know anybody. The hematologist, they don't know. They would never think that, hey, let's feed people steak and they get better, which interesting. I've seen hemochromatosis several times now improve on carnivore and low carb and keto. And I do think it's probably an absorption problem in a way because we don't really have good mechanisms to get rid of iron. Younger women can menstruate and lose a little bit, but guys are pretty much stuck. And so they just tell you, let's draw your blood every day. And it's just, or not every day, like you said, up to once. I've seen people up to twice a week they're drawing blood. And, it's like, how realistic would that have been? Do humans have to need to be bled all the time? I guess there used to be like leeches and bloodletting back in the medieval times, but you'd assume we could survive life without having to bleed every once a week.
Yeah.
And we know that like insulin controls hepcidin, which controls absorption of iron. And when you're probably more insulin normalized, which I think carnivore helps with, and then you see this overall cascade of things again that get better. What did your doctors, hematologist, primary care physician, whoever is managing this hemochromatosis ever say anything once it went away? Did you ever, hey doc, it's gone now?
They didn't want to know. They said, okay, we don't need to see you. Check it every 6 months. I'm like, okay. That's it.
Yeah, the lack of curiosity.
I don't understand it. If I was a doctor, I would be so curious about everything.
I am. That's what I'm doing. I always like to say, what the heck? Like I said, there's a certain percentage of weird diseases that they have this quote unquote spontaneous remission of cancer and whatever it might be. And they just say, okay, I don't know, 3% of the time it's going to remit. And they just, okay, and there's no curiosity in those groups, or at least none that I've seen. Whereas I think that is something that should be just studied like crazy. It's like, why are these people getting better? What's different about them? And we would be surprised if probably a lot of them change their diet, I would guess. So you've got the blood issues sorted. You lost another 40 pounds. What other things did you notice beneficially? Mental health, GI health, any things that get better for you?
I've always been fairly chirpy and Pollyanna. So I did get down there for a while. That one, about an 8-year period I had was pretty tough, but I'm all happy and chipper now. I'm not foggy. I had a lot of little skin things that got better, like skin tags. I don't sunburn. I tan easy. It's all that kind of stuff. Hangnails and the bottoms of my feet are nice and smooth. I don't have to sand them anymore. I just have to grate my heels all the time because they get all crusty. They're like smooth as a baby's foot. They're really nice. And I walk all the time. So I wear slippers and I wear tennies, so it doesn't really seem to matter. It's nice and smooth. Brown spots are disappearing. I'm still all wrinkled, but I am 70.
So the little brown spots, because there's often people that call those like liver spots or age spots that sometimes a lot of people they'll get them on their forearm. Older people in their arms. Or they'll get bruising because their vessels get so fragile. You just notice a generalized sort of regression of signs of aging. And you mentioned that You don't mind getting older. You just don't want to look older. And I think, and I'm the same. I don't mind getting older.
I don't want to feel old.
Like, that's the exact thing. You don't want to feel look old and be old.
I feel 30.
It's okay to have a high number. Well, good for you. That's awesome. So how would you rate your health today versus at any other time in your life?
Oh, I think I'm doing really good. Probably since my 20s. My exercise, I got my muscles. I do weights. We do twice a week. It's a class where we do lots of curls and lifts and stuff like that, and lots of squatting. That's all good. I'm getting better at squatting and still have problems because my knees did hurt at one time. I have arthritis in my hip, but I don't feel it unless I eat a bunch of chicken. If I eat a bunch of chicken or eggs, my hips start feeling loose. Does that make sense? They feel loose. Like when you do yoga pose, like the warrior pose, my hips feel loose. I don't know how else to explain it. They don't really ache, but they feel loose. And then I can feel my knees and my hands are swollen in the morning. So I can't do the chicken. Oh, and your butter thing. I tried the butter thing, the steak and butter girl. Oh, a stick of butter. Oh, that sounds good. So I was eating the stick of butter, 10 pounds in 1 week. So that went.
Oh, you gained 10 pounds.
I gained 10 pounds in 1 week. Yes, 10 pounds. Okay, that's enough of that. So, so
that was butter plus whatever else you were eating.
Yes, I just added it in.
Yeah.
I do want to try the fat only. So
that was just the question I had, is what happened if you only ate fat? Because there's some people that will suggest that there's no human data that suggests that fat drives insulin. Others say they do. And I like I said, this is one way you would figure that out. Of course, that diet of just fat, you'd be obviously no essential proteins. You would probably have issues around some other things, perhaps over long. You couldn't do that extended period of time, but for a week, you could probably handle it and see what happened. If you didn't get diarrhea, I would worry about getting diarrhea depending on
Kelly Hogan commented on your question. Did you see her comment?
I saw it. I did see it. I did see it.
I could do an every other day thing. That would be easy because I do like to eat. So eating is something I haven't been able to lose a taste for. I do like to sit down with my bowl or whatever and eat it. Every other day I could probably manage it. And I've got I save the fat I cook a lot of picanhas and I save the fat in the fridge. So I could eat that so I give it a try.
So when you cook a picanha, it's got the fat cap. Do you cut the cap off and then save that for
No, I got a Ninja Foodie that has the top loading and it's got like a grill that drops down in it. It gets up to 510, I think. So it browns it. It's not like the other ones that sweat the meat to death. The air fryers that sweat the meat. So the fat gets nice and brown, and it doesn't totally melt. I cook it pretty rare. Sometimes it's still cool in the middle. My son goes, "Oh, that's too red." So I save the fat and put it in the fridge. Put it in little ice cube trays and put it in the fridge.
Let me ask you about, because this is still, even in 2024, considered by many people a strange way to live. And oh my gosh, how could you possibly live this way and not be able to eat pink food and blue food and green food and that type of stuff, and no fiber and no bread and yada, fruits and vegetables, stuff like that. Do you have like people around you that are aware of what you do, family members, close friends, things like that?
When I first started the keto, a lot of people got upset with me. Started it again, I should say.
Why do they?
I don't know. I think they're also addicted, that they're afraid to face it and have to change. Because I was addicted. I went through a period of I was just cramming the sugar as much as I could for a while. And it wasn't very long. I snapped out of it, but it was my dark period there. The sugar just makes it worse, makes you more unhappy. But anyway, I had a little problems there, but I quit talking about it because, at first when you start doing it, you feel so good and everything's changing and you're feeling better and you're like, they don't want to hear about it. So you have to keep it quiet. Now it's, oh yeah, she won't eat that. I'm like, no. And I usually eat before I go to a party. So like I went to a party recently. I thought it was going to be a barbecue and it was pizza. So thank God I ate a pound of meat before I went. Yeah. My big cheats nowadays are, let me see, I'm basically beef, water, salt. And a cheat would be like, a treat. Let's call it a treat. Pork rinds, some pork belly occasionally, stuff like that. And my big cheat would be a glass of wine or whiskey at a party, just so that I have something. I have one or two, and then I start putting water in it.
You're fairly strict and mostly kind of beef and water for the most part. Why is that? I see some people like myself, I'm pretty much just beef, but I do occasionally have eggs and occasionally have some dairy products and occasionally have fish. I've recently been eating salmon lately. And of course, I've had a piece of cake here and there. I had a week where I ate some apples about 2 months ago, which made me feel awful. So I decided that's not for me. And again, that was just to see what it would do to my cholesterol. I had no real desire to do it for any other reason. But why personally are you so strict? Is there some reason that you just feel bad when you don't do that?
Well, I love lamb, but something about the fat upsets my stomach. And I love pork belly, but again, it's probably too fatty. It upsets my stomach, like ribs and stuff like that. Pork upsets my stomach. And I think if I ate enough of it, it would probably bother me like the chicken. I love chicken wings. Every now and then I have chicken wings in my air fryer, but I can't eat a lot of it. And really the rest of the chicken, I don't care about. I just like the skin on the wings, on the skin on the thighs. That's all I really want. That's why I don't do that. And then I can't eat cheese. I can. I love cheese. I could eat pounds of cheese, but 2 ounces of cheese will put 2 pounds on me the next morning. I know it's inflammation. It's not fat, but it's there. And sausage, deli meats, same thing. I can't eat them. They 2 pounds. If I have a couple of sausages at a party or something, next day, 2 pounds. And then you got to spend all week getting rid of it. So I'm slowly getting to the point where I just don't touch that cheese and I don't eat the sausages. And it's just the way it is. Too many years of damage and I'm just sensitive. So maybe in another 10 years, then I won't care anymore. So it's like,
like I said, you said you're 70 now and maybe you got 30, maybe you live to 100. Who knows?
Hope so.
I mean, if you feel, if you feel good, why not?
Yeah,
what
my
the heck?
folks are both 90, so.
Yeah, that's the way you've got some good genetics. And tell me about you, because you flashed the guns up. And so how long have you been doing the lifting? Is that something new to you, or is that something you've done
9 years. I started out with 3 and 5 pounders. Now I pick them up. What's this? It's a feather. So I use 15 pounders with 2.5 pound wrist weights. So that's 17 pounds in all the lifts. We do 75 lifts total. No. Yes, 75.
When you say we, is that part of a class?
Yeah, I'm in a class. I live
see.
in a retirement place here. There's 9,500 lists, right? And there's a class there's 40 people in it. We range from like 60 to 93. And so you got all different weights and everybody's in there doing their thing. But if you lift enough weights and you're sweating, it's a workout. I tell the guys come in and they act like it's a sissy class. I says, the teacher's doing 25 pounds. You want to do that? So they try it and then pretty soon they're up to 10 and 15 pounds too. So anyway, so it's 150 lifts and then a bunch of curls and lifts in different ways, press ups and then you do lifts and squats. And the hardest one for me is the squat thrust. 15 of those with 12 pounds, and that's hard. And then we do some yoga, some standing and balancing, and it's a great class. I love it. It's a well-balanced class. So.
As you said, so you're living in the sort of retirement village or something like that, where there's lots of
old people,
older folks that are retired and old people. And do you look around and see all these old people that are probably not doing that? Maybe, I don't know, maybe everybody's active and happy there and just wonder about what they're eating. And do you see any of that? Do you have any neighbors that you say, look?
Yes, there's all kinds. Most of the people here are active. It's not like an assisted living. They want you to be able to take care of yourself here. They encourage it. So there's almost every weekend there's a dance of some sort. I love the rock and roll dancing. We dance for 2 hours until tiger butter on the floor. It's great. I love it. And then there's so many sports, pickleball and this and that and golf. And there's just so much to do. One of the ladies in my class, she's 96. She's in the class for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. She was playing ping pong and fell over and fractured her hip. So they patched her up and she's up and about again. She was at the dance. So I think if you have a little bit of muscle underneath there, you can survive. I did fall down, let me see, just before Christmas, year before last, on my walk. I was walking back from the beach, tripped and went right down on my hands. I skinned one elbow, skinned my hand, bruised my knees, got up. Everything was fine. Nothing was broken, but my shoulder was jammed. So it took me, I couldn't, when you hold the weights up and you lower them like that, I couldn't lower. I get it down to here and I had to go like this and then out again. It took me 7 months to be able to lower it. Now it's fine again, but I didn't break anything. I fell down right on my hands and knees and didn't break anything. So I was very proud of myself. It's silly as you get older, the things that are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's like when you fall down and don't break something. That's kind of a victory. I remember I fell down some stairs, a flight of stairs. I was walking around in my socks on hardwood floor, and they'd just been polished and went down and bounced. And I got up. I was like, I'm okay. Yeah. Because kids go running up and down stairs. Sometimes they fall and they're fine, but you don't see adults doing it that often. But yeah, it's good. It's good that you don't break, because breaking is it's a real problem. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, like these people that break their hips, 30% of them die within a year. It's a sad stat. So
in a way, it's inspiring around here, because there are so many people who are up and about doing things. We're always busy. If I was just sitting somewhere in a house or apartment by myself, it might be different. But I can take a 4-mile walk inside of the property here, no problem.
Mm-hmm. What is because you mentioned you've been lifting weights for 9 years, and you've been carnivore for, I'm not sure how many years you mentioned, 3 or 4 or something
5.
Like that. 5 years. Have you found with regard to getting stronger, perhaps the 4 years previous versus the 5 years after carnivore, was there a difference? Did you notice you were able to get stronger maybe?
Yes. When I started losing the weight with a carnivore, all of a sudden all these muscles popped up. It's wow. I don't know if they were always there, but at that time I was probably doing 5s and 8-pounders for the different parts of the routine. And now I'm doing 17 and 12. So I've been building up, so it's hard to tell.
Are you, do you have other like people in your class that like think you're a beast or something like that? Or
Yeah, they tease. It's okay. The teacher uses 25s, but it's a really good workout. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things. I won't miss that. 2 days a week. I'm good. And then I walk to the beach and back. It's a 6+ mile round trip from here to the end of the pier and back. So that's my main exercise. I hate to admit it, but I got a rebounder, which I love. I did.
Why do you hate to admit it?
It sounds silly. So I bounce on it, and the first time I did it, I think I only got to 50. My legs were rubber. Now I can keep going for a while. But it really, it's like jogging, sprinting. And I'd rather do that and go out and run.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of bouncing on my own, but not on a rebounder, just on a harder. I think the harder surface provides a little more stimulation for that. But a rebounder is a good place to start. And like I said, I would say if you could just come off the rebounder and just do little bounces in place on the harder thing, that'll provide more stimulation for the tendons and also the bones, quite honestly. But it helps with blood flow and helps you move. And you feel good when you're jumping around. And I start every day. I start up every day. I take my dog for a walk, and then I go bounce around in the garage, do some pull-ups, and it's a good way to start the day. So yeah, for sure. That's really awesome. Go ahead.
One thing, I got a dehydrator. When you got yours, I thought I'm going to do that because that sounds like a good snack instead of the pork skins all the time. So I got that, and I started doing it with the thin sliced meat that I could find in the store. But then my son sent me a thing about a jerky gun. Like, what?
Jerky
gun. It looks like a big caulking gun. It's probably 2.5 inches around, and it's about a foot or so long. You can get about a pound or so of meat in there, hamburger. So I just salt some hamburger. You have to use the 90-10 because if you use the 73 or 5 or whatever it is, the fat just runs out the bottom of the dehydrator. That was a mistake. So the 90-10 doesn't drip at all. You put it in there, you squeeze it out of the gun in these little ribbons onto the trays, and put it on low for 7 hours. It's great. And my kid's here, he's like in there constantly eating it. He's also carnivore. When I first started the carnivore, what are you doing? So I gave him my list. I have a list of influencers, right? All these people that I like to listen to. So I gave him my list. He started listening to it. Now he's carnivore also. So he loves my jerky. He's like, can I take a bag of this with me? But it's really good. And it sits I put it in an open container in the fridge, and it just keeps drying, and it stays for a week or so. So I do 6 pounds at a time. Amazing. I would recommend it to anybody for snacks.
Yeah, it's a great, if you want a snack, and I often don't, I rarely snack, really feel a desire to snack, but that has been something. So you lost, I don't know, you said you peaked weight at 230. I don't know where you are now, but
I lost 80. So I'm right about 150.
150.
Up a little, down a little.
How much does that require for you to eat at 70 and relatively active?
I try to eat a pound to a pound and a quarter a day of beef. And then maybe sometimes in the morning, I'll have a few strips of the jerky, a couple strips of jerky. And maybe in the evening, if I just want to chew something, you sit down the TD and you got that old habit of wanting. So if I'm not working on something, I'll have that. But basically, it's a pound and a quarter or so.
Okay. So that's 100, 125 grams of protein a day. So that's a decent amount of protein for sure. That's far more than probably most of your neighbors are consuming, I would guess.
You eat beef,
30 grams.
You're going to have a heart attack.
What about that? Are you going to have a heart attack? How's your heart?
Let me see. At the very beginning of the carnivore thing, because everybody was yammering on, I went and had a CAC and it was 2. That was at the beginning. And then about 3 years later, I had another one and it went up to 11. So I need to go again. So maybe in the next year.
Okay. So minimal progression. That's certainly some progression, but granted you're 70 now.
And I probably have 25 years of not eating well.
Yeah. The number of people that at 70 have 0 CAC is pretty low. I think it's probably, I don't know the stats, but it's probably around 10% or something like that would be my guess. So in general, and you're functioning well, you're happy. Could you see if somebody said, hey, look, you need because a lot of older people are told, cut back on meat. You got it because you're going to have heart disease and it's going to kill you. And what are your thoughts around that? Because you're obviously at 70 and you've got a small amount of heart disease, but like I said, your quality of life is probably better than it's been since you said the 20s. What are your thoughts on that?
Nobody's going to talk me out of this. I got no place to go. I'm not going back to the veggies and all that. There's no way. So this is it. I don't know what else I would eat. You got to eat something. And this is it. Can't give up anything else, I don't think. Meat, water, and salt. I guess salt I could get rid of. But yeah, so nobody's going to talk me out of it because I don't believe it. I listen to all these people that you interview and Barry interviews, everybody interviews. I listen and listen. And of course, you're listening to us. I'm listening to people that are going to probably say what I want them to say, but there's a lot of truth in what everybody's saying. So I'm not worried about it.
I think ultimately, and I tell people, you shouldn't put your trust in someone else. You got to verify it yourself. And like I said, kudos to you for actually doing the thing where you sequentially check your imaging because you're getting some information there. And to say you went from 2 to 11 over a period of 3 or 4 years, that's certainly not rapid progression. And again, that's calcification versus, and it could have been even beneficial in a way that maybe you had some uncalcified plaque and you calcified it. I mean, it's hard to say for sure. There's higher level tests you could potentially get. But at the same time.
Yeah. At one point, the first one, I had a full body scan with it and they found stones in my thyroid and stones in my, I knew I had a stone up here. Like it was flared up yesterday. My dog. Yeah, it swelled up like this.
Parotid gland or something.
Hurts. Yeah. Anyway, so I went and they sent me to have a sonogram or ultrasound or whatever on my thyroid. And she says, yes, you got 2 stones in there. It's no big deal. It's not cancers or growth or anything. And while she was there, she unofficially went over and checked my stone in my neck. It's gone from behind my ear around to the front. Now it's down here and it's driving me crazy. Anyway, I go for months with nothing and then all of a sudden it swells up again. And then she checked my carotid artery at the same time. And she said, it's perfect. I'm like, perfectly clear. So I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah. Like I said, here's a problem because if you go and get an MRI of your whole body and you're over like 30, You're going to find
Of
something.
course.
I mean, there's going to be something there that may have never, ever even you have thought about it, and now you're worried about it. And so it's sometimes, you want to know. Maybe you don't want to know. I know everybody's individual. Some people want to know everything, and they're going to biohack their way out of it. And I don't know, maybe live forever, supposedly.
Yeah, give yourself anxiety.
I'm not holding my breath on people living forever. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But what else? What about mental health? What about mental health? How's your mood? Do you feel, has it made you happier?
I'm always cheerful. Yeah. People get irritated with me because I'm chirpy.
Damn it. Be sad.
What's wrong with you? No, sorry. But I've always been that way. It's hard. I really have to work to make myself upset and depressed,
That's not a bad place to be. I mean, there's, like I said, as I, for good or bad, have to be in the social media world, and, you're constantly exposed to just like depressing stuff. And it's funny, my sister has become, I think she spends all day reading conspiracy theories because she's always sending me awful stuff. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do about it? It's okay, that's good. And you can sit there and gloom and doom all day long. But at the end of the day, you've got to actually live your life and do something. And it's what we're doing with Revero and some of this other stuff is trying to make a difference. Yes, I complain about it, but at the same time, I'm trying to do something about it too. This is like when I was a military officer, I didn't retire. I got out of the military as a lieutenant colonel when I got out. And so you had some leadership stuff. And one of the things they would tell you is when people come to you with problems, if they don't have suggestions or solutions, like I remember when my officer says, if you come with a problem, you better provide 2 solutions to your problem, because now particularly if it's your problem, because you better start thinking about the solutions to your problem before you burden me with that. And I think
you can't complain until you have a solution. That's always been my thing. I can't complain about something until I have an idea of how to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that just complain and they're disempowered. They're like, yeah, if that's your attitude, there's nothing you can do about it. And the man's out to get you, or the world is unfair, or life is unjust. Good luck. If you can't figure out, hey, there's whatever, I broke my leg, I got to fix it. You can get help, but it's certainly, you've got to have the idea that these things are solvable. Otherwise life gets pretty depressing. Linda, we've got about just a couple minutes left. Anything else you want to share?
I had so many things on my brain and my list and everything. It's all, I don't know.
Any advice for people in your age cohort about things in general? Like I said, I'm 57, so I look to people that outlive me and people that are better than me and in some way or form. And somebody that's older than me figured out how to live longer than I have so far. So there's good advice in some of this stuff. So what are your thoughts?
My only advice to other people is no grains, no seed oils, no sugar, and then take it from there. Because one of the ladies in my exercise class, 6 years ago, she wanted to know how I lost weight, and I told her what I was doing. And she's, or 5 years ago, she's, I can't give up bread. I can't eat all that meat. Now she's got a boyfriend, right? And they're walking, and he eats low carb, and now she's eating low carb, and she's lost 30 pounds, and she's thrilled. You could have did that 5 years ago. And then my friends, they're all got borderline diabetes or diabetic, or they got fatty liver, they got this and that, but they won't give up stuff. You just got to give up some of that stuff. It's hard, but you got to do it.
Fair enough. Maybe don't wait. You don't have to wait till you're broken.
Yeah, I know. You got hemochromatosis and every other darn thing. Yeah.
That's cool. I think that's, to me, that obviously it's inspiring to see what you're doing and all the things. And I think the hemochromatosis one, because that is often, a lot of people are worried about hemochromatosis, and they're like, hey, my iron's already high. I don't want to consume all this heme iron because my doctor said, your doctor always says red meat's bad for you. I guess most do. And it's, wait a minute, maybe not. So anyway, thank you, Linda, very much. Like I said, I'm sure I'll see you in the community tomorrow. Okay. So I think I'm doing an interview tomorrow, but anyway, I'm going to shut this down. Thanks everybody for being here. Linda, I appreciate it. Thanks for the story. Thank you.